that's a good question. It took, we all do a lot of interviews, and people would say to me, interviewers would say, you need to write a book. So I'd heard that for years.
Yeah, yeah.
And then a Russian journalist did a 4-page spread on me in a print magazine in Russia.
Yeah.
And he knew so much about my career that I was shocked. He kept saying, you got to write a book. I go, well, why don't you work with me on the book? But then we decided that Russia, being the time difference and the language barrier, even though he
Yeah.
spoke English, we decided not a good idea. So Martin Popov talked to me one day. We spent an hour on the phone, and he said, you have to do a book. Then I was contacted by Phil Doc Harrington, who said, I will transcribe your audio files. So we started, and that's when I said, fine. And he's told me that I don't even know this. He knows so much about my career that they have me logged at like 245 different projects, which is
Wow.
unbelievable to me.
Wow.
I had no idea. I'm doing it for my daughter because she always said, whenever you talk about your childhood, it's so sad. The stories are so sad. So I thought, well, we can't leave it at that, can we? So we started, and when we started, I just, I don't know whether it's not very bright or just naive, but I thought, oh, it'll be 2 months. I'll just dictate these stories. I came up with the chapter titles, and I would do the chapters, and oh, this will be a piece of cake. So I figured 2 months. It was 2 years before the book was released.
First, I met Jack in 1990, I believe. XYZ opened for Great White, the Santa Monica Civic Center. And I thought he was a terrific singer. I was like, wow, this guy's got so much energy. He's a great singer. Really, really good singer. And he was nice to me. We did a few shows together, but we never really connected. Although we were on the same label, we were on Capitol Records together. So we never really connected back then. And then I joined Great White in late 2010, I believe 2010, I joined Great White. I was with the band for 8 years. And 8 years, oh yeah. And then after my departure, Jack reached out to me and talked to me. And that's when we became friends. I was a little bit wary at first. I got to be honest with you, because of the band told me so many horror stories about him. He was a drunk, he was this, he was that. And so I didn't know how to approach him, plus I was replacing him in Great White. So I just didn't know how to feel, to be honest with you. And then I met the guy, and just he was a tremendous guy. I mean, the thing about Jack was intelligent. Sure. He was a very intelligent person. He was funny, a great sense of humor, a bit sarcastic. Sometimes I love it. Sure. And, he was a good human being. I mean, he was so nice to other people, not just me. Yeah. But I've seen how he was treating other people, talking to other people, being kind to everyone, signing an autograph, talking to this guy and that guy, taking the time to say hello. And I realized he was a really good person. So as time went on, we became friends. We used to call each other, chit chat on the phone, text each other. It's just weird that him and I were not friends back in the days, but we became friends after my departure from Great White.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something funny. I think like Terry said, Jack just had a tremendous sense of humor. He really, he had so many funny stories and so many funny jokes. I honestly wish I would have written them down, because you just don't think at the time, you're laughing and you're not really thinking about this stuff. But, as far as when, I toured with him for 3 years, and, I'm trying to think if there's anything that was really, stood out as actually funny. I mean, we were pretty serious in terms of, we're always trying to do a great show. So, we're very focused. Yeah, I wish I had something that I could say that was super humorous, but I will tell you, I definitely agree with Terry. I wish I would have written down like a lot of his jokes. He had very quick, very dry humor, very, very witty, and was always, so like anytime he was saying stuff, like 90% of the time it was really funny. I mean, 90% of the time, like, and he was like almost a professional grade comedian.
The very first time I met him was through Derek Pontier. He was a former drummer that had played with Jack with Great White, I don't know, early 2000s. And I'd met Derek and Dario Seixas. They came to a jam I was doing at NAMM, and we kind of hit it off. And they came up and played, and we played together. I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. And exchanged numbers. I knew Dario, but didn't know Derek. But then Derek had called and said, hey, I'm going to go out to see Jack in the desert. You want to come out with me? And he was talking about forming the Shelter Dogs. I go, yeah, let's go out there and check it out. So we went out there, and he wasn't in any shape to do a band. Mm-hmm. But we hung out that evening, and then I went back the following week, hung out with him all day, and he was in no condition to do a band. So it kind of put it on, it's just like, whatever. That was it. That's how we initially met. But then months later, Dario called me up and said, hey, Jack's doing better. He's living in Redondo Beach on a boat. Come on out and hang out. So I went and hung out, and it was funny because I walk in and he's got a big screen, and he's got me on the screen from one of my videos playing this Can of Whoop-Ass thing. And then he turns and he looks up at me and he goes, I kind of remember you. And I'm thinking, wow.
We were all stuck in a bus for months and months at a time with each other, and months, in buses and planes all the time. And so that was kind of a different dynamic, in those days, Jack was very pretty straight-laced most of the time, because he was very concerned about his performance and his voice, and there was a lot at stake. There's a lot of it was a big responsibility at the time, big venues, big tours, and that kind of thing. So we were all together all the time, and after a while, everybody gets on everybody's nerves. But fast forward, 20 years or whatever, or 30 years, and we were doing fly dates. So you just kind of see the guys on the weekend, and it's cool, man. It's a different existence, and it's a lot less stressful, I think. It's more stressful in other ways, but and he had his demons for sure, and we saw plenty of that. But for the most part, we just got out there and just try to get the work done, get out and make the shows happen.
Brent and I we're diehard Kiss fans. Like, we're hardcore 70s. So you can't put enough cool Kiss songs in there. Yeah. It just comes down to Gene singing them. Like, remember, I guess, if we said, hey, we want to learn these 6 songs, Gene's got to either learn all the vocals, again. So a lot of them he hasn't played in a long time. And we added a couple covers, but yeah, he's totally open to all suggestions, Well, he was saying, hey, think of some covers. We had covered Manic Depression. We worked on Communication Breakdown, which I think we played live. Never in My Life from Mountain, because Gene, I mean, I can't sit here and say I know everything about him, but I know he loves that old Humble Pie, Zeppelin, Hendrix, Mountain, like that stuff, that vibe. And I think what happens is, if you put a guy, you give a guy this idea, and his partner's Paul Stanley, and it becomes hugely successful. But part of the thing is makeup and boots and lights and smoke and pyrotechnics. And then you do 50 years of that. I think it's just nice for him to go, oh, jeans and a t-shirt and my boots and just go play bass. I think it's and I think that brings him back to pre-Kiss, that stuff that was changing the world, those bands that he was into, and he loves big riffs and all that kind of stuff. So he's open to anything. And then I think we said, wouldn't it be cool if Gene sang Ace of Spades? We threw that his way. What do you think of that? Because we threw, he's saying just throw some covers. We talked about a Jeff Beck cover. Gene was talking about a Jeff Beck cover, and anyhow, we go through Ace of Spades in rehearsal one day, and he gets it on playing bass, right? So we take a break, and then he goes, Brian. I'm like, yeah. He's like, how would you feel about singing Ace of Spades? And I go, or could you sing it? I go, yeah, I don't know the lyrics, but I could try it. You know, it's just like I have the basic idea of it in my head.
Yeah.
And it was cool. So we tried it, and he goes, you want to sing that live? So he never even got to singing it, which was the whole reason we suggested it. But I was like, great, that's cool that he's allowing me to do that, because it's another challenge and it's a lot of fun.
Hey, Brian, would you ever toy with, you think you'd ever sing something like Strange Ways?
Well, we got to first start by saying how awesome Peter Criss's voice is,
Sure,
right?
sure,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, I love Paul. Paul in his prime, and his prime was a really long time, not just the 70s. He was killing it, the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s.
Sure.
Like, wow, because such a big, full voice, and his range, just killer. Gene, always consistent, like killer. The two of them together. But Ace had a cool voice, a little more on the punk side, but great. So I'm a hardcore Ace solo record, 78 solo record.
Okay.
That's my favorite. I think it's perfect top to bottom. Peter, though, I mean, his voice it's just great. It's just that grasp on the edge of breaking, but it doesn't. I love it. So, I can't sing like that. I don't have that kind of voice.
Hey, I gotta say, as a Kiss fan, on the early Kiss records, I loved when Gene and Paul put their voices together.
That's great. But I just heard, I don't know why I put it on. Or was it on something? I don't know. I just Baby Driver from a Rock and Roll Over.
Yeah.
So Peters just sounds killer on that. But he's also killer on Hard Luck Woman. There's not too much I don't like about Kiss, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's great that all the guys were characters, superheroes, but they all did sing lead. By the time it got to Shock Me, there's Ace now too, and he's singing lead. Would I sing it? Yeah, I would give it a try. I mean,
yeah.
And
but my final question for the day, Brian, is: has there been any talk of like a Gene solo album or new music?
Yeah. There's been talk, but it was just like,
we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like, hey guys, I want to do, and it was just like, oh, I guess he gets offers for everything.
Sure.
He's a guy, so I got an offer for a solo record. So I've heard that, but I personally because I know how we sound when we rehearse, so I would love to just say to him, or get the opportunity, like if we all had the time and worked out, just to record like one song to see how it goes, just one.
Yeah. Tell us how, obviously you and Kenny previously played together in Typo Negative, as many people know. So talk about how The Sun Don't Shine came together and how this new project came to be.
This really was put together by Andrew Spalding. He's starting a label, Corpse Paint Records, and he had been mentioning it. I know he's been mentioning it to Kenny and I he had been talking about it for a long time, about wanting to put the two of us in a room with Kirk and Todd.
For years. Even the Kirky's been talking about it.
Yeah, they've been talking about it for years. And then I guess at this point, like a year and a half ago? Maybe even 2 years.
2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago. Drew made it happen. He put us in a room together.
I remember texting a few riff ideas to Kirk like the day before I got on the plane to meet with these guys in Florida. And then we all just got into a rehearsal studio and threw some ideas on the table. And literally less than 48 hours later, we were leaving the studio with a finished song. So it was pretty,
I was the last to hear about it. I had no idea what they were doing. Drew picked me up from the airport and drove me to the rehearsal studio, and then we started working on the song there. The other three were in the room already.
Oh wow!
They had been working on some stuff, working on ideas, and then they just started throwing stuff at me, and then we put it together.
So it's sort of all offensive to all cults and
right.
Non-discriminatory. I don't discriminate. Yeah, I do not. But it's it's a fun song. For me, it's a fun song.
What else would you expect in a punk song, right? From a punk band.
Listen, the whole album is fun. I got to tell you.
Yeah.
It's fun to listen to. It's fun. It was fun playing. Even more.
Oh yeah, we had a great time making the record. I think everybody did a great job. Both work. Everybody's Roth's a great musician. Albert's You know, Albert's Albert. Albert's,
Yeah.
you know, he's Mr. Cowbell.
Bring the cowbell.
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live reference, folks.
Yeah.
I'll fix your fever.
Uh, we have Albert doing cowbell solos live.
Well, absolutely. Ross and I go way back. I've toured with when Ross was in Man of War. I did their Fight in the World tour. Ross and I did a U.S. tour. I think in 2018 we toured together. And he's actually the godfather of my son. He was at the hospital when my son was born. So
wow,
that's amazing. We have a big history together. We talk almost every day. So how did you end up in the Dictators? And I love Ross. So I know he's an easy
listen.
guy.
He's as you know, he's a freak of a guitar player. You know,
absolutely.
I mean, people always said you play guitar like Tom Petty, and that's all I ever aspire to be. You know, I'm a bass player, and then I started writing, using the guitar as a tool, and then I'm like, all right, I got okay at it. And playing in a band with Ross, you know, he shows you a lot of stuff, but you know, sometimes I sit in awe of watching him because he is incredible player. I mean, and you know, on the record, my record, you know, he does a song where he plays more like B.B. King. It's not like, you know, the Man of War Dictators vibe. And I said, Ross, this is the song for you. And he's just, you know, he's one of those guys that can give me goosebumps to watch him. And, you know, they really don't need me to play guitar, but I'm one of those guys that really who's going to sit there. I'm not like a front guy. So it's more like my Linus security blanket, you know. You know, he always says this amp sucks or that amp sucks or this is great, but he sounds the same through everything he plays. You know, he doesn't use any pedals. He just plugs into anything. You can give him a $30 amp that he bought at Corvettes back in 1971, and it's going to sound great. I mean, and he'll tell you it is all in the fingers. You know, I'm sure if you put Eddie Van Halen or any of these iconic guitar players, you know, and I feel Ross is actually in that league, but I mean, you know, he's one of those guys that he could play on anything, and it's all in the fingers.